Hello, everybody. Scott Golden, Pro Wrestling Logic here, and today we're going to go through the Raw review for the 18th of May, 2020. Better show than normal, in my opinion. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, comment below, and we could definitely use your support as we endeavor to get to 1,000 subscribers. Once we get there, we'll be able to hopefully within a short time after that, start giving to the COVID relief fund somewhere to try and help some folks that are struggling with work issues and food solvency issues, all those things. So your subscription and continued watching actually helps us get there. But like I said, tonight's Raw, not a bad show overall. They open with Becky Lynch video package. Yeah, okay. I mean, as I mentioned in last week's Raw review, I'm not a huge fan of them making as big a deal out of her pregnancy as they are. If she were a NXT woman, would they be doing the same thing? Probably not. If she was even some of the women on Raw and SmackDown that were undercard women, would they be making this big deal? No. They're making a big deal because A, she's connected to Seth Rollins, and B, she's been a big draw for them. And I think that's favoritism, and I don't think that is. First of all, I mean, I like that they acknowledged it, but they've given more TV time to this than they have many of their undercard talents in the last month, 2 months, 3 months. It's unnecessary, and it's overkill, at least to me. So we open with Charlie Caruso introducing Randy Orton. This is a wrestling match between Orton and Edge, is what she said. They also call this possibly the greatest ever. Almost 60 years as a company, 55 plus years, whatever it is, as a television company, and we're going to call this the best match ever. Kind of hyperbole, just a little lot there. Caruso asking Orton about his challenge. Orton asked if it's hard to understand what he's saying. Straight wrestling match is what he wants. He does say this is World Wrestling Entertainment. I wonder if he gets fined for using the word wrestling on television. And wrestling was the basis of what they do. Edge he was a better man at WrestleMania, but he wasn't the better wrestler. Orton wouldn't need tables and chairs to beat him. Orton says that no other athlete and no other wrestler can do what he does. I've seen many do it, so that's a lie. Orton says that, he saw grit and passion in the eyes of Edge in the past, but it's faded away now. And now all Edge has is doubt and fear. Good heel tactic there, I suppose. Edge runs out and says he knew this was a game of chess. He says he's not in a rush because he knows the next move to make. And Orton and Edge talk about this. Well, Edge talks about this being a game to Orton. And then Edge said this is his life and that this is a backup plan for him. Orton didn't dream about winning championships or save all his money to go to live events. He says Orton didn't cry the night he won the Intercontinental Championship, and Edge knew that winning the championship would set him apart as one of the best ever, and it did. Says it set him aside as a workhorse, and that he'll beat him. He eventually did beat Randy Orton for that championship. And then Edge noted that Orton has never come back from a career-threatening injury. Not true. His shoulder was career-threatening multiple times. Orton cut him off again, and then Edge yells that he does indeed accept the challenge. And Samoa Joe again puts over that this could be the greatest wrestling match ever. Unless they have something like a 2-hour match or something with just such intensity. I mean, the greatest in a long time, sure. The greatest of the year, definitely the greatest of the decade. If you want to call it greatest of the 20s in 2020, okay. But the greatest ever, that's a lot of ground to cover, and I think they're setting things up. Backstage, Seth Rollins and Murphy are out, and says he's had a revelation. Rollins and Murphy ended up with a in-ring promo where Rollins says sometimes you have to lose yourself to find who you are. He says that losing to Drew McIntyre at Money in the Bank was a dark place for him. However, there is an exposure to light through the darkness, and says he's seen the light. He thanked Rey Mysterio Jr. for helping him do that. He said he knew that people would think what he's done to Mysterio is unforgivable. He said this allows him to be the leader he needs to be, and he then basically says it's a blessing in disguise and actually says you're welcome to Rey. Carrillo makes his way out, says that nobody believed Rollins. Mysterio was his hero and also a hero to millions, and called Rollins a coward, and Murphy steps in between Rollins and Carrillo. Rollins says he wasn't dressed to compete, but that Murphy would be willing to compete, and it appears that all is well. So, just want to touch on the two promos before we actually get into the first match. The Randy Orton Edge thing was very, very good. Other than the fact that they're calling this the greatest match ever, this is probably one of the more meatier storylines they've had in a while. You know, the story between the two makes sense. Hopefully it leads to Edge having at least one more championship run of some sort, even if it's like a tag or Intercontinental or something. I hope that they have a long-range plan for Edge to come back from the injury he's had and just be stuck in a feud that is very good but inconsequential. Like, I don't think that in 5 years people are going to look back on Edge and Orton, this incarnation, and be like, oh, this is one of the greatest things ever, the greatest thing in the last decade, or anything like that. And to take the risks that Edge is taking by coming back to have something that's not memorable, I don't know. To me, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't put myself in the role of putting life with my family on hold for something like this. Hopefully, they have a long-range plan. I love the fact that Edge, talked about passion and saving money to go to events and winning the Intercontinental title really meaning something to him, and all those things. It makes him relatable. It really makes him, because there's kids out there now, there's teenagers out there now, there's 20-somethings out there now who have the identity of, or at least the partial identity of, being a guy or lady who this would be their dream job. This would be their dream opportunity. Just being in that ring, being in an arena, being a champion, having one pro match would be their dream in life. And I think if this had an audience, I think it would be connecting with a live audience very well. On the other hand, the Orton thing, I think they could be going a different route with it. He could say something like, I was born for this. I was born ready. My father, my grandfather gave me the pedigree to be ready, so I didn't have to have the passion because I had the DNA, I had the genetics, I had the predisposition, I had the opportunity, I had the authority. So I didn't need to be some dreamer off in a corner. I didn't need to be some wannabe crying over championship belts that at the end of the day were just another thing to lug through an airport. No, I had a destiny to fulfill, and I've done that. And I'm going to show you that this is my destiny when we tie up. I think Orton, his interview was fine, but I think it needs another layer and can have another layer. Now, the Rollins thing, I see what they're trying to do with it, especially with what comes later in the program with Austin Theory, but they're doing it incorrectly. He's talking about revelations, he's talking about being a savior, he's talking about being a messiah. They're going for Jim Jones. They're going for a cult leader. They're going for a modern day Raven, and especially when you know that Paul Heyman's behind the writing of this, you can see Heyman's fingerprints on it. The issue is he's not making the approach relatable. I know that there are critics of the monotone approach. I have no problem with the monotone approach. As someone who was raised in mind control, as someone who was raised in cultic mentality, I completely see exactly where they're going with this. Trouble being, they're not making it. There's something to do. You can easily go, like with the COVID thing, you could easily go somewhere like, you people, there's a pandemic. The world is changing. The world is ending. You don't know what to believe in. You don't know where to turn. You're locked in your homes. You're locked away from your jobs. Heck, some of you may not even have jobs to return to. Some of you can't feed your family. Some of you can't survive. But trust me. Hold on to Seth Rollins. I'll be the hero you need for this time. I'll be the hero you need in this history. I have the skills, the talents, the abilities to carry you when you cannot walk, to carry you when you cannot crawl. I will be the spiritual nourishment you need. I will be the leader that you crave. I will be the one to carry you through these dark times. You're welcome. You see, I think that would get a reaction because it's like, yeah, we do need these things, but we don't want you. You know what I mean? There has to be something more to what... If he's going to be a messiah, if he's going to be a leader, then he has to be leading people out of something or to something, and that layer has not been established. And with that layer not being established, and this going on for months already, it's like, why is he the Messiah? What's his purpose? What's his meaning? What's there? And he's got Murphy, and now, ostensibly, he might have Carrillo, or not Carrillo, and I'm looking at Carrillo because he's in the match with Murphy. He might have Austin Theory, but what are his disciples, what message are they preaching? What are his disciples there to do? That hasn't been established either. Other than do his bidding, it has not been established. Anyway, so we go into the match with Murphy and Carrillo, which match is fine. Murphy jumpstarts the match early, and this is about 30 minutes into the program. Begins during a break and was over relatively quickly. Carrillo hits a dive, but gets distracted by Rollins, who didn't do anything to cause a distraction, so he must have some real, psychokinesis going on here. Murphy hits a knee strike, and Murphy's law for the win. Murphy continues attacking until Aleister Black runs out. Rollins walks away, and Murphy ducked a black mass and bailed. And then we move on to Corbin yelling about, a stagehand, and he yells about, as my microphone falls over there, as he yells about, not getting treated properly. He yells about being the face of SmackDown, and he yells about being better than everybody. He's yelling at a referee because nobody bowed when he walked in the building. He's annoyed. He has to go to a different place to get food, and he's annoyed about even having to be there at all. Eh, I'll admit I'm biased. There's nothing Corbin can do at this point. He's been too pushed down my throat. If they let him go tomorrow, I would not care. I know the guy works hard. I get it. He's talented at what he does. But this is a case of overexposure, at least for me. And I'd love for people to comment below. Is the overexposure of Baron Corbin, does that make you want to change the channel? They've been pushing him so hard for so long that I don't care what he does. I'm not going to enjoy it by default. Anyway, we go back to a Liv Morgan promo. She says her mom's her hero. Her mom didn't have a good job. Her mom didn't have a lot of money, but she never quit. And Morgan says that she might have lost to Charlotte Flair, and that Flair's the pride and joy of the WWE, but she didn't win, but she didn't quit either. She says one day she'll be women's champion, and I mean I liked this. Why her mom worked so hard would have been nice to know. Like, I understand I have a kid, but you know, why would you work so hard if you didn't have a job? Why would you not quit? What made her not quit? When was the first moment Liv got this life lesson? Like, there's ways to go further with this, and I hope they do. She's at least got more personality than a lot of the women, some of whom are on this program. And they've done that over, 4 to 6 week period. So good job. I enjoy this. We then go to a Charlotte Flair promo. Really promo heavy Raw. Maybe the ratings from the overly wrestling heavy Raw from a couple weeks ago with the Apollo Crews thing scared them. Maybe they're using the downtime of the lockdown to get characters over for when fans can return. I don't know, but it really seems like promos have become the center of Raw. Character development has become the center of Raw. More noticeable this week than others. Charlotte out. She's the hardest working person on all three brands. I would agree with that. She's not wrong. In the face of Raw, a mentor at NXT, and will make a special appearance in a champion versus champion match with Bayley on SmackDown. There's levels to being a champion. Ruby Riott had something to say to her, how she knew this. Maybe she's psychic. And then they go face to face. They've got a match coming up. Charlotte Flair and Ruby Riott. Relatively a throwaway match. I don't know. I'm not. First of all, Ruby Riott's never been somebody that really connected with me, so maybe I'm biased. But if you're going to have Charlotte Flair on a program, you should, and they run the risk at this point, and I honestly think it has something to do with the number of talents they have available during the lockdown. I think they're overexposing certain talents because they don't have as many bodies as they normally would. But Charlotte Flair runs the risk of being overexposed if she isn't already. There's no reason for this Ruby Riott match. Matter of fact, there's really not much of a reason to care about Ruby Riott at all. Comment below if you can think of one. Anyway, the match is short, starts during the break. Flair chops the ring post. I don't like that spot. To me, that should break your hand every time. And then Riott fights back in the ring and hits a senton. Riott gets a near fall with a schoolgirl, and then Charlotte applies the figure eight and gets the win. A completely throwaway match. It served to fill time, but not a big deal. Anyway, an attempt to interview Bobby Lashley. MVP walks up, says he's wasting time. Why deal with R-Truth? He should be wanting better things. Hasn't had a championship match in 13 years. Acknowledges Lana. MVP says he doesn't want to get beat up, but at the same time, how effective would the move be against a champion? MVP wonders when Lashley will free himself. And then he says he didn't need trophies because he already has a trophy wife. Youch. Lashley's annoyed by this, but continues listening. MVP is phenomenal. He's probably one of the better talkers in WWE right now, and I really hope they put other people with him because he's got an ability to talk, an ability to be convincing with whatever they give him promo-wise in a really cool way. I honestly think, mainly because I've listened to his podcast enough, or used to listen to his podcast before he went back to WWE and over the last several years, that I honestly think MVP, the person, has a lot to do with the scripting of his promos, or he's just a really good actor and he needs to go into movies. One of the two, or probably a combination of both, because he's got something that's unique, and everything he says, he delivers it in a believable way, which is a gift and a talent. Alright, hokey stuff that doesn't matter. Street Profits appear in the axe throwing competition, which is being held in a field in the middle of nowhere. Viking Raiders welcome them and don't beat them up. How come? Viking Raiders have many friends. Why don't their friends jump the Street Profits? They lit a fire as a gift for the Street Profits. Dawkins was about to tell them off, but then Ford steps in and stops him from basically getting them killed. Ford notes how dumb it would be not to accept a gift from a bunch of Vikings. It's campy comedy, but it's kind of funny. Like, dude, we're outnumbered. Let's not do this. They do some practice throwing. The Street Profits claim they have this. Camera tricks, we don't really see, at least at this point, we don't see the throw. Asuka Championship Celebration. I can see the stages of a Kairi Sane turn coming here. Asuka out and she's given some flowers. Sane spends a good bit, celebrating Asuka. Says she's the Raw Women's Champion. She's the Asuka does her celebratory dance. Asuka dancing is just fun. It's goofy, it's fun, it's light, it's good. I'm surprised. I didn't know, and it's because I don't watch Stardom, which is on my list of things to watch, but there aren't enough hours in the day, that Kairi Sane spoke as clear in English as she does. I think it's been a waste of time for her not to do so over the last however long she's been a part of the company. And maybe she did earlier than the last 3 or 4 months when I got back into things, but I didn't know that her English was so clear. I think they've underused her in that way. They show pictures of Asuka through useful moments until the death of the women's division, otherwise known as Nia Jax, makes her way out. Jax interrupts. She says there's nothing to celebrate because the only reason she has the championship is because Becky Lynch is out on maternity leave. Asuka attacks her for interrupting, and they go brawling around the ring. This was fine, although to me, you would think Asuka, being a bit unhinged, would have attacked a little bit earlier. That's what makes sense to my brain. Like, Nia was allowed to talk for a couple of minutes before Asuka takes her out. To me, it's like, if you're a champion and the Asuka character as the unbeatable, world beater, wouldn't you go right at Nia, like, within her first 2 sentences? That's just a question mark for me. Anyway, Charlie Caruso interviews Baron Corbin backstage, asks if he has any doubts about facing Drew McIntyre later, says that he's the one that chose the match. He also carried McIntyre for over a year, and Corbin acknowledges how dangerous he is, but doesn't seem to care. He says he can expose the mistakes of McIntyre and would beat him tonight. The next time they fought would be main event of WrestleMania. Please don't start hyping WrestleMania 37 this far away. A and B, I'm sorry. Not even I think I could get behind McIntyre and Corbin at WrestleMania. Don't even tease that. That's like teasing, oh gosh. Like I just no. Just no way, no how. Please don't. It's just like I'm gobsmacked that they would even threaten that. That seems like hostage stuff. It just no, all the way around no. In any event, we move on to as my notes run away. In any event, we move on to the. Hold on 1 second. Let me pause and get my notes back together here. All right, so we go on to Lashley and R-Truth. This is what you'd expect it to be. They go about 2.5 minutes. Truth does some stupid comedy early. The 24/7 401k blah 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 championship. He calls Phil Nelson from The Symptoms and threatens to go after Tom Brady. I'd really love to see Tom Brady do a spear or something to Truth at some point, just as a comedy payoff. If you're going to mention the guy's name, let him do something. Anyway, Lashley uses a full Nelson slam to get the win. MVP out and is watching. They cut to Lana, who's watching the match on TV. She's not happy that she's not getting attention. And Asuka and Sane continue to celebrate backstage. They went their separate ways, and Jax appears just to watch them leave. Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross go less than 3 minutes with the Iconics in a dumb DQ. Iconics, they're again a team that I've never gotten. Maybe I've watched some of their stuff, but wasn't a weekly episodic watcher during the time. I guess they got the majority of their push. To me, they're just kind of throwaway bodies. So maybe I don't get it. Anyway, so Bliss does the majority of work for the match, and she hits a twisted Bliss at a point. Royce breaks up the cover. Royce repeatedly drove Bliss's shoulder first into the post. Referee demanded that she stop, and she doesn't, so they call for the DQ. Wow, we're really trying to get DQs over, because this is like the second week that DQs have been pulled out of nowhere. I'm not a fan of this. Anyway, the challengers aren't happy with it either. Kairi Sane plays a recorder as she was doing during the celebration. Iconics argue. One slaps the other. And they cry and hug, and it's just horrible. Asuka runs in to check on Sane after she'd been, I guess, attacked or whatever. Anyway, after the break, Jax walks through, and then Asuka and Jax have a brawl backstage. Not looking forward to the match, but that's where they're going. Just under 4 minutes, Shayna Baszler defeats Natty Neidhart in a submission match. Not a fan. Shayna Baszler should be the world beater that Asuka used to be before, she got beaten by Charlotte a couple of Manias ago. Shayna Baszler should be untouchable, unbeatable, and a monster. To build her up for Asuka, monster versus monster would be cool. Natty Neidhart's been around for like 13 years. No offense to her, she's very talented at being and someone to bring the best out of women. She's done so most of her career in WWE, but I can't imagine anyone caring at this point. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Somebody tell me I'm wrong. Does she sell merchandise? Does she connect with the audience, little girls who want to be like her? Does she have something that I'm not seeing, or has time passed her by and at this point she should be used to put people over? And I get that 4 minutes isn't long, but this felt like this should have been 40 seconds. This should have been Shayna Baszler just going to town, and Natty, who's got almost a decade and a half of experience in WWE, should have been just completely beaten all to heck. Anyway, there are no rope breaks in the match, and there's a counter into a sharpshooter early. So Natty lets the hold go because she loses her leverage. Natty counters, applies a knee bar, and there's a clutch, a Coquina clutch for the submission win. Another short match. I'm not sure I like all the short matches. They were too long a couple weeks ago, and now they're too short. Finding that balance is an important part of kind of resetting Raw as we move through this pandemic deal. Kevin Owens is back with the KO show. Before we go too far with it, though, Natty is angry about her loss. She hucks some of the props for the KO show out and about and around. Andrade, Angel Garza, and Austin Theory out. Vega stops them. They're fighting. She's not happy. This is just kind of campy. Anyway, so they all come out. They continue fighting. She knows that Owens stands on the apron and wouldn't even stand in the ring with them. That's because Owens has another guest. It's Apollo Crews. Why is Apollo Crews going to run out in the middle of three people? Four if we count Vega. 4-on-1. 3-on-1. Well, because he's somehow brain dead, stupid, or just a wannabe hero. Anyway, Owens gets back in and says when he's surrounded by too many people, things don't end well. And then we have a match just under 3 minutes where Kevin Owens and Apollo Crews defeat Andrade and Angel Garza with Zelina Vega. Owens gives Crews the hot tag. Theory tries interfering but gets nailed, and then Crews follows with a sit-out powerbomb for the pinfall win. Andrade attacks Theory. Andrade and Garza beat him up, and Vega pitched in with a slap, and he's left laying. Charlie Caruso is completely oblivious to all that happens. Drew McIntyre's there. He says it's always a great night for Claymore Party. We've taken Claymore Party and turned it into a super kick party. At least they could say fiesta or shindig or celebration, or the party thing is a direct dig at the Bucks. I get it, but it's just whatever. So he says Corbin has his dream match tonight. McIntyre knew that Corbin would do whatever it took. He says, McIntyre says that Claymore is ready for Corbin. We're back to the axe throwing contest. Ford tries tossing an axe, but it's high into the air and the trees, and it goes nowhere. Dawkins ready, but he's distracted by a horse. Luckily, they didn't throw the axe at the horse. That would have incited PETA. Dawkins attempts to throw, but misses. Anyway, Viking friends were mad. And so this is not. The comment is made that this is nothing like Floor. Theory's still at ringside, so like he hasn't been able to wander backstage in the several minutes that have occurred here, um, which is just silly. I to me it's kind of like what are we doing that it takes that many minutes for something like that to happen. So then we kind of go into a um, we go into the match where Black and Murphy wrestle. Theory is pulled to his feet by Seth Rollins. Rollins looks like he has another follower. This could be good for Theory. Anyhow, Theory attacks Rollins. I'm sorry. Theory attacks Black almost at the insistence of Rollins without Rollins saying much other than kind of controlling his mind. Carrillo does not come out to save Aleister Black, however. Kind of dumb. Anyway, more axe throwing, and then they each get 10 throws. The only throws that count are the axes hitting the bullseye. The Raiders led 10-0. Raiders encouraged the Street Profits on their last shot. Ford nails the bullseye and they celebrated together, kind of like the last week with the basketball thing. Cop car shows up. Gee, that's nifty. And then an axe goes through the windshield of the cop car. Cops wanted to know why this happened. Anyway, you know, then one of the cops calls one of the Viking Raiders cute. It's just campy junk. Anyway, Charlie Caruso's back and she's interviewing Apollo Crews. This has been the longest 3 weeks of his life. He realized he had to reach deep within to win the U.S. title. And that's that. Vega shows up. She said he could cut his losses and limp away on his bad leg. Says he better be ready. And then, he says he's going to become the new U.S. champion next week. If we actually cared about him, this might matter. Longest match of the night goes to Corbin and Drew McIntyre. Just over 9 minutes for this. That was about 7 minutes too long. For the match, MVP and Lashley make their way out to the stage. MVP's impressed by Corbin. Says he noted that McIntyre holds the prestigious championships. Lashley then cuts his own promo. What's the point of having someone talk for him if he can do that himself? The idea of having someone talk for you is when you can't talk for yourself or not very well. Anyway, Lashley says that he wants a shot at McIntyre. He's put McIntyre on his list and on notice. He says he will pry the championship out of his cold, dead hands if he had to. If he's dead, he might not be champion anymore, but that's just a thought. Anyway, Corbin goes out, does his in and out spot, hits a clothesline, but only gets a 1 count. Corbin hits a superplex. McIntyre is out of that again at 1. McIntyre is being pushed like a beast, and I almost wonder if Vince or whoever's signing off on this, which I know is Vince, but I've got to believe that they're starting to have other people sign off on things, or at least starting to think about this. Anyway, whoever's behind the McIntyre push is really behind it because McIntyre looks strong every time out. I'm in favor of this. I think McIntyre's probably the best babyface they have right now in the company. Maybe Charlotte Flair is as a heel, but I can't think of another babyface that's stronger than McIntyre or has a better upside. Anyway, McIntyre with a belly-to-belly suplex, followed by a big boot and a spine buster. Sidewalk slam for another 1 count. Corbin being made to look weak, which is cool with me because he's been made to look strong far too long, in my opinion. Anyway, McIntyre follows up with a Future Shock DDT. Goes for the Claymore kick, but gets countered into the deep six for a 2 count. Finally, McIntyre or Corbin looks a little bit strong. McIntyre hits a headbutt and then hits a Claymore kick and gets the win. Post match, McIntyre taunts Lashley and dares him to become the killer he could be. McIntyre does not get his wish as MVP holds Lashley back as they go off the air as the champion poses with the championship, and that closes Raw. Overall, I would say at least 60% of the show was good. Yes, there's stuff they could throw away, but I don't think there's ever going to be a point where you don't see that somewhere in the Raw show. Certainly better than SmackDown, better than NXT's been the last little while. Anyway, love to have your opinion. Comment below, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll be back with more TNT reviews. Also, going to add some older NWA content at the request of some people. So if you have a request, comment below or do what most people are doing, and that's give me a follow on Twitter at PO Perception and comment about or DM about things you'd like to see. In any event, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.